Welcome to the IDP Hunter Podcast on the Fantasy Six Pack Network. I'm your host, Steve Hungarter. I'm a writer and an analyst over here at the Fantasy Six Pack and the RPO Network. I'm also an ECR ranker. I'm the number 4 IDP ECR ranker. I'm joined tonight by my co-host, AJ Veal, otherwise known as the Baby Cow. AJ Veal is a former writer himself over at the Fantasy Wing Nutz, and he was also during his time in the military, he was a sports writer for the U.S. Army branch. What's going on, AJ?
What's up, brother? Thanks for having me. Love getting on top of the ball.
What you been up to?
Same old work, and then just pray for August to come around so there's football to watch.
Heck yeah, it gets kind of boring this time of year. So we're, especially putting together content, speculating. So this is why I kind of brought you in. When you're not doing push-ups and eating MREs in the field there, in the civilian world here, all we have is our entertainment, right?
Yep.
I wanted to bring you in. I wanted to talk about some of these players in the offseason, some of our best guesses, some of our there's no data. There's very few beat writers. There's no practice yet. So this is all speculation and just what we're thinking.
Yep.
A lot of these players aren't even assigned roles. A lot of these rookies just got out of the draft, So when we're thinking of green dots and who's going to be the green dot defender on each position, these are nothing but guesses. Why don't you tell our audience what a green dot is? They may not even know what we're talking about right now.
Yeah, so the green dots are the guys that have the headsets in their helmet, right? So on offense, it's probably safe to say the punter or the kicker doesn't have a headset, in their helmet. It's the quarterback, right? So who is your quarterback of defense? And that's basically what it boils down to with the green dot.
Yeah, so for my audience on Spotify that can't see our screen, we're going to pull up a couple of stats and details and what have you. But what we're trying to do is we're trying to make our best guesses, our green dot guesses, if you will. Like AJ was saying, there's a headset one player has so he can talk to the coach on offense and defense. They've been doing this since the early 2000s. Generally, the quarterback has it on offense. Most people don't really pay attention to it, especially if you're playing in offensive fantasy football leagues, right? But on defense, it actually matters. The context does matter a little bit because whoever that defender is, and usually it's in the middle linebacker or it's a safety, but usually whoever that guy is, not only does he have access to the coach, not only does he have access to the plays, but more importantly, that guarantees him to be a 3-down role type player. If you're playing 3 downs and my player's only getting 1 down, obviously he's going to get more playing time than anybody else. So because IDP is such a different topic than offense, these are the little edges that we look for. We look for these players that have significance on the field. We look for the players that have the best chance of scoring, the best chance of putting himself or other players in the position. We look for players that have these key roles. I.e., when I first started playing AJ, and you can probably elaborate on this too, middle linebacker and strong safety. Those were the 2 positions you wanted because they were in the best position to make the most tackles.
Yeah. And when speaking of safety, you wanted those box safeties, right? The coverage guys are cool, but you wanted the dudes that were going to get those tackles and build up that stat line, right? And when you're talking about 3-down linebackers, just think about it just very simple, like getting rid of the green dot, getting rid of all of that is how many plays per game is this guy getting me? And you kind of told me to look at the snap count, right? And that's where I've been able to start digging in. So the more snaps, the higher potential for tackles or to make plays, which means higher potential for you to score points.
And that's a good point too, because when I first started playing, I go back to 2004. I'm an old man now, right? Free safety and strong safety were 2 totally different positions. Strong safety was there, hovering, making plays. The free safety was more back in coverage, and that's how schemes were. When I first started playing, 4-3s and 3-4s mattered. Now it's a little bit of hybrid of everything. It's a mixed mod. Now we got nickels and dimes in coverage. Now we got free safeties and strong safeties moving around. So that box play matters. Making it even worse, there's a lot more safeties in play, a lot more defensive linemen in play. Linebackers are few and far between, making this episode even more important because we want the guy who's going to be on the field. But back to the green dot. The green dot player, he's going to have a headset. He's going to have communication to the coach. He's going to receive the plays, put them into translation. I mean, that's huge. Some networks have like the data right then and there, and you'll be able to know during the season. But what we're doing right now, AJ, I don't think it's ever unheard of. Who the heck really knows what players are what in May? You know what I mean? So this is our best guesses, best on, my research. I've been on different sites, Twitter, best on AJ's research. We're looking at the top college players, how that translated when they were when they were rookies. And we're trying to identify and figure out who we think is going to be significant and who do we think the coach is going to trust enough to get these green dots. What says you, AJ?
Yeah, man,
I think I'm ready to go after this list, man.
Yeah. Like looking off the list that we were looking at initially, leading up, doing research, I'd say it's probably a safe bet. Over half the league is probably a lock. They have their guy that they know and they can depend on. He's proven. But then the other half of the league, right? Some of them are toss-ups and some of them were Band-Aids, like we were talking about earlier. The guys that maybe have a year or two left. And they might have to pass that torch on. So I'd say half the league's a lock and half are kind of toss-ups, or that maybe that rookie or maybe that new free agent acquisition can come in and push them for that green dot. And we'll go over a couple of those.
Heck yeah. And I think, I think the best way to do this is going alphabetical order, right? Going alphabetical order, you can't go wrong. So let's start with the Falcons. AJ, what do you see in the Falcons? I know we got a new regime. I know we got some questionable calls, but let's talk about the Atlanta Falcons.
Okay, so living in Atlanta, spending a lot of time around their leadership and whatnot through my work, I don't know what they're doing. We saw that in the draft. The guy Troy Anderson that keeps coming up, so much potential. I think he played running back, kicker, wide receiver, linebacker, quarterback in college, kind of do it all. But he hasn't been healthy for 2 years, so he's still unknown. And you have Caden Ellis. I don't know. And I just want to throw this out there. There is a guy, and some of y'all might have been able to scoop this dude up in fantasy, is Nate Landman, right? He was the green dot at Colorado. He comes in, I believe he was an undrafted guy, off the bench and drops 110 tackles in 16 games. Okay, so I'm seeing it might be hard, even as a new coach, and Raheem Morris has been around the block. He knows D, man. It might be too hard and difficult to leave 110 tackles. This guy's proven. He proved it. Troy, the potential factor is might get him above Landman. You're big on Troy, right?
Well, it's not that I'm big on Troy. It's just they spent a second-round draft pick on Troy, and he got hurt. When he was coming out of college, he was highly regarded. They're not just going to let another player, take that position. Landman was great, and linebacker is a volume position. I mean, it is. But ideally, Troy Anderson is expected to be a green dot where last year and this year he just got hurt. Generally you don't lose a position unless you're Drew Bledsoe. You don't lose a position when you're hurt, right? But he had a promising sophomore season. Troy Anderson did, and then once he had the injury, kind of people forgot about him. So right now he's a buy. We did a dynasty bargain buy yesterday on the podcast, me and Jay Progue, but he's a buy because no one's paying attention to him. But I think, it's Atlanta. It's Troy Anderson's job to lose. Granted, I know that Landman did an admirable job to fill in, but he's the third guy next to Ellis. They paid those guys. Context matters, substance matters. I'm not saying he won't get on the field, but there's a good linebacker core, AJ, between Landman, Anderson, Ellis. They even got that new rookie, J.D. Bernard, in there, So, all of that, I don't know. All of that is great for depth. It's a roster clog. But considering all like the athletic gifts that Troy Anderson can bring this team, provided he stays healthy, it's a no-brainer to me that he still remains the green dot. I mean, again, I'm saying this in May. If somebody got traded, it'd be something different. But yeah, you asked me 9 out of 10 people, you would probably hear it was Troy Anderson.
Yeah. No, I completely agree as far as like value and potential. But then again, who knows what kind of defense Raheem's really going to throw out there, with the Falcons. They're kind of in a weird spot. Are they a playoff team? Are they a contender now that they have Cousins? I mean, I don't know. There's a lot going on in Atlanta right now. So I'd like to see where we're at in August on this depth chart.
Oh, yeah. And then moving to Arizona, there was one guy in Arizona last year. He's brought over from the Eagles, Kaiser White. He was their green dot. He was their green. He even halfway through the season when TJ Edwards, another excellent green dot pedigree, always there making the tackle, always making the play. When he went down, they gave to Kaiser White. He held up. That was during that Super Bowl run the Eagles had a couple of years back. He goes to the desert with his old coach. He comes over here. He plays his heart out. He's another one like Troy Anderson people forget about because he got hurt. I don't see anyone else on this roster with the Cardinals taking over the Kaiser White role. Do you, AJ?
There was only one guy that you could even consider, but I don't think he's ever worn it in the 8 or 9 years he's been there, and that's Buddha. So I don't expect anybody to even be remotely close to challenging Kaiser to stealing the dot. So yeah, same page, brother.
Right. And then just going down the list and off the order. People on Spotify don't see what I'm doing. I'm just literally just pulling up the different teams. I'm pulling up, just giving the research for those on YouTube that are watching this. Me and the baby cows here. We're just going through the teams. We're doing by line who we think the starters are. And some of these are hard, especially in May. I mean, we got a couple. We got 3 or 4 we got to kind of sit back and talk about. But I think when you go to the first couple we talked about, they're no-brainers. Here's another no-brainer. What do you think about the Ravens?
It's Roquan all day, every day. You said Ravens?
Yeah, on the screen we have the Ravens, and that's next in the alphabetical order. The Ravens have Roquan Smith. Tackle leader. He's the reason that they're there. He's the one that puts everybody in place. There's nothing really to speculate and talk about with these first couple. So I'm just going to move on to one that I'm curious about. What says you about the Bills, AJ?
So when you kind of look at the defense and kind of the overhaul that's happened, and this could be another guy that's kind of a sneaky sleeper dude, and is Matt Milano, right? But as we were talking about earlier, man, I don't know if he is the guy, but who's there to kind of fill in?
I don't either.
Dorian Williams, who didn't even wear that at Tulane, Terrell Bernard, I don't think there's anybody there to push Matt, but I don't think he's ever worn it before. So, and the safeties are gone. I just don't know. I'm kind of in a pickle on this one.
So with the Bills, Matt Milano's like your team leader. He's your guy, right? But he plays more. He plays more on the outside. He was supposed to be the green dot in 2022, and he lost to the Tremaine Edmonds, who's notoriously not a very good top tier linebacker. I know he has the name, the pedigree, so that should tell you something there. I don't have a lot of faith in keeping it. I think it goes back to Bernard, and these are just speculation guesses. I mean, Bernard right now, he's going as a top 10 linebacker in fantasy. He did the job well. My only concern is if Bernard is so good, why they did musical chairs all year last year?
Yeah.
But yeah, I still think it's Bernard with the consideration that it could be Milano because they're always sniffing around, but he doesn't wear the dot, so I don't want people to be confused thinking that I'm saying that. Yeah. I don't see it. Any thoughts here?
Yeah, we'll see in August, man. I know Milano, he can produce when he's healthy. But, I mean, maybe it's a safer bet. Say, hey, Milano has a higher chance for injury. He's got the history for it. Well, let's just get the dude that's going to be on the field more opportunities to be on the field and call the plays, So I could see going either way.
And I know we're in a bit like a difference on this one. The Carolina Panthers, they have a huge rotation. They just brought in a couple players, right? Hosey Jewell, they have Shaq Thomas on his roster. They brought in the rookie Trevin Wallace. This one here is a pickle. This one here, I'm very curious. What says you? Who do you think ends up with it, and why?
Josie, man, he's been the dude since Iowa, and then at Denver when he was healthy. So I think coming over here, man, put Shaq a little bit on the outside, let him use his athleticism. If you don't know that, Shaq was a safety in college. So, you know what I'm saying? Like, let Josie do his thing. Let him run that middle. I really think he is like, you know, a top inside linebacker. But as far as like quarterback of the defense, I want to do like that. He's been in that leadership position probably since a sophomore at Iowa. He knows what's going on. So that's who my bet is, with a defensive-minded coach being their head coach now.
Yeah, I know Shaq is coming from injury. I believe it was his ankle. So I'm kind of leaning your way too, especially when you have a guy who's proven. Trevin Wallace, I don't feel is a threat, especially his rookie year, because he's more of an athletic freak, combine freak. He's going to have to take a while to learn the game. Yep. So, yeah, my money's on Jewell as well, being the green dot here, putting everybody in position, just because he has the pedigree, he has the athletic skills, and he has the veteran leadership. So, yeah, he'd be over to 3. So that's definitely a good job there. Yep. Going down the list, my friend, we're going on to the Bears. What can you tell me about the Bears green dot situation?
You actually brought him up earlier when you were talking about Philly. TJ Edwards, man. Yeah, he's got to be in the
tackle monster.
Only got to compete. You talked about him at his time in Buffalo. I don't think there's really anybody else. Sanborn's not there yet, remotely close. It's got to be Edwards.
Yeah, it's going to be Edwards all day long with that, and the same thing with the Bengals. I'm not going to waste my breath thinking it's anybody else. The Bengals got Logan Wilson there, and they're happy to do it. He's the only one that gets 100% snap count. Now, every once in a while, Pratt will jump in there. He'll sneak in there, and he'll have a couple things to say. But other than that, those two teams, you can do them back to back. You know, TJ Edwards, Logan Wilson, those are your guys. Now, Where I'm interested here is a team that's fully loaded, this Cleveland Browns team. They've struggled at linebacker, haven't they?
Oh, yeah.
What are your thoughts on the Browns?
It's kind of hard to pin on them because it has been like musical chairs in the linebacking core. A couple years ago, they drafted Owusu Kamara, and dude is starting to come around. But then you bring in the journeyed veteran, the leader, wherever he goes, and he's going to make plays with Hicks. You know, me, if I was in charge, I'm giving the dude that I'm going to build my linebacking future around, and that's JOK. That's what I'm doing. Hicks is a Band-Aid for now for me. So personally, that's who I think should be rocking the green dot.
Yeah, it's funny you said that, and I'm quoting football guys here. I was on their site the other day. Gary Davenport wrote this great article. If you guys ever want to check it out, check out Football Guys. They got a lot of smart guys over there too. I just had Joey the Tooth on my show. Kyle B. We're in a bunch of best ball drafts together. Those guys are smart. Those guys are on it. But Gary did a piece on winners and losers, and he was talking about Hicks in general, and he kind of broke this down for us. So I appreciate that, Gary. If you listen at home, or maybe I can give you a shout on Twitter, I will. But, you said the word journeyman, and that's exactly what Jordan Hicks is at this point. He's 31. This is his third team in 4 seasons. I mean, you can kind of check the box. I mean, honestly, a lot of people don't want to talk about it, but Pace kind of outplayed him last year a little bit. But, he got hurt. I don't really like to discredit people or count them out because they got hurt. But you got 31-year-old linebacker, but you can't say he's unproductive. I mean, in fact, especially we could go all the way back to his years with Arizona. He logged 5 straight 100 seasons, including 107 tackles and 13. in 2023. 2023, that wasn't that long ago, my friend, So I know the talk right now, people want to see JOK get on the field. They want to see what he can do. He does have a real shot, and I'm not going to say he doesn't. So it's going to be between those two. But Hicks has been a legitimate LB2, kind of older, crafty veteran. He's going to be in that territory. He's familiar with Jim Schwartz's defense. That's why I kind of give him the edge here. Again, we're not talking about best players or who I'm going to draft, right? We're talking about green dot defensive play callers here. So I think it's Hicks until somebody else tells me otherwise. And again, I'm going to go, if you give me one in the hand versus two in the bush, I'm going to take the one in the hand all day long. It's only May. And, this guy can get hurt in the preseason. We can switch our thoughts. But for right now, I think it's JOK. In drafts, startup drafts, I'm getting him super dead late. He's a 3-down linebacker player. Don't discredit him just because of the fact that he's 31 years old. But I think it's still Hicks, even though we know JOK is on the rise. But JOK is really good playing that outside and all that other kind of stuff. But, I think your box LB here is going to be Hicks, and he's going to stay there until otherwise, until he can teach the role, What says you about the Cowboys, though? The Cowboys were kind of interesting to me, but I think there's only one player right now, given that Vander Esch retired, right? There's only one major player that stands out to me. What says you about the Cowboys?
Yeah, the one player you have to be talking about is Eric Kendricks, right?
Yeah.
Another Band-Aid. Probably not going to be around for a long time. Maybe, he puts on the green dot. Maybe Clark comes around eventually. It's not going to be the dude they drafted from Notre Dame, Leafow. So it's really Kendricks. That's it.
Yeah, and that's a good point. Following Vander Esch's retirement, in the offseason, it seems like it's Kendricks' role. Kendricks is familiar with Mike Zimmer's systems. Again, there's a trend here on my list. I may not be taking the highly touted player. I'm taking the guy that has familiarity, especially with a green dot. He's a former All-Pro too. Let's not forget, and he has experience wearing the green dot. AJ, I might take a pause because I've heard you say the term Band-Aid a couple times. Can you explain to the audience what a Band-Aid is?
Yeah. Okay. So when you get hurt, get a cut on your arm, right? Wash it off, throw a Band-Aid on that bad boy. Hopefully it heals and doesn't get infected, right?
Yeah, right.
Or you open it up, clean it all out completely, disinfect it, alcohol, peroxide, whatever you need to do. Stitch that bad boy up and then throw some gauze, tape it off, and then you change it frequently, right, to keep it clean so there's not much of a scar left. I'm calling these dudes Band-Aids because they're not permanent, right? They might get the job done, but maybe for a couple games, maybe only for a season. They're older or they're just a journeyman, right? Maybe they're a good green dot, but they have a poor locker room presence. We don't know everything that goes on. So I'm just saying these guys are Band-Aids. They're not permanent. They're going to do their job and then move on in a year or two or retire. That's where I'm getting at.
Yeah, right.
Just stop the bleed.
I guess we should move on. What'd you say?
I said Band-Aid, stop the bleeding. All right, Dallas.
Yeah.
We didn't go running back, and we took a linebacker that was undrafted.
That should tell you something right there, right? So definitely Kendricks, no question. Moving on to the next team, the Broncos. Broncos green dot. Do you see it any other way besides Mr. Tackle Machine himself, Alex Singleton?
Not really, man. The only thing I could think of on somebody that could challenge him that has the potential would be Drew Sanders. But we don't know what position that dude's going to play. He was a stud at Bama. He was okay at Bama. Arkansas, he balled out. Is he an outside linebacker? Is he a DN? Can you move him in the middle? Yeah. But I don't see him even getting close to that green dot for another 2 seasons because we don't know where he's playing, So Singleton's
agree with Denver. I see now that, Jules out and now he's with the Panthers. I see that Alex Singleton's job to lose. Leagues that are discrediting Singleton or leagues that are ageists, they're not really looking at this. He's an easy pickup, and he's easily going to wear the green dot. There's nobody really there but what? Will they sign Cody Barton, I think. Cody Barton's more of a player. But it should be a really fun, productive duo down there in Denver. But yeah, I see it being the same way you just said. I see the Singleton's job from day one.
Yep.
And pending an injury, it's his job to lose.
Yep.
Now here's an interesting one. At least I think it's interesting. We got the Detroit Lions up next. What do you see with his linebacker position? What do you see with the green dot?
Well, I really think it's Anzalone to lose. But, man, I watched this dude from his freshman year as a Gator. So much potential, so much hype when we were recruiting, dude. And then he was just hurt all the time. And then his NFL career, hurt plays. So they've got Campbell sitting in the wings, coming around. He's also another Iowa dude. I don't know if you know this about Iowa. They like offensive linemen and middle linebackers.
Why is that, I wonder?
Yeah, probably all the corn, man. I don't know. I'm from the South.
Right.
Anzalone, he actually did really, really well last year. So I think he's rocking it. Maybe let Campbell sit another season and learn and still be productive. And then you wait for Alex to get an injury or for them to, say, see ya. It's Campbell's eventually, but for now, we'll go with AA.
The interesting thing about what you just said, we give Alex Anzalone a lot of crap. And actually, if you go back previous seasons, we used to give Singleton a lot of crap as guys that aren't really good, but they make tackles, yada, yada, yada. It's really the system. It's really the scheme, what have you. The fantasy community kind of owes Alex Anzalone an apology because he had a quality year last year. He really did. He was one of those top 30 LBs. He did enough to start, and he did enough to lead the team. Jack Campbell did get lost a few times when he did play, so it's going to be a learning curve. AJ, I did an article on Dynasty age clips with IDP. Now, a lot of people look at IDP, especially the way I play. We kind of churn them and burn them. But there is fact that some of these positions take a little bit longer to learn, to peak out and go with. Linebackers one. Defensive back kind of put them in. They play whatever. It's good, but linebacker takes a little bit. There's a learning curve. There's an intelligence. There's an IQ to it. Campbell is your guy. Anzalone is your guy at the moment. And to be honest, this organization got it figured out finally. For years, the running joke in football was to just run it down his throat. Run it down his team's throat. It's all you got to do to win games. They actually got a linebacker core that they fixed. Now, last year, games were evident. Everyone's afraid of this running defense, so they're just passing on the corners, passing on the sides. They finally got the corners, we hope, especially in this draft class. So we'll see. But this is a formidable defense. And when you have a formidable defense, you have a team competing. There's no reason in the world to change what you've been doing just because
Yep. Steve, you want to know what the when we were talking about Denver and then Detroit?
When you're talking about these kind of players, especially these kind of players, we just don't know. Again, it's May. For the audience on Spotify, it's just tune in. It sees us on YouTube. We're just pulling up teams, logos. We're pulling up the data that we came up with. Moving on to the Packers. This is an interesting one. I kind of want to pause and talk about a little bit. What says you about Green Bay? What do you think of this green dot situation?
So real quick, I think I figured out why people are anti-Singleton and Anzalone. They both have long hair. It just doesn't look right. No, I'm just joking. Green Bay, Quay Walker, he's the guy. He was on that great Georgia defense. He came in the league. He's putting up numbers. He's great. Then the Packers, who, by the way, I think had a really, really good draft, take Edge, who I don't think is ready to wear the green dot, but I think if Quay goes down, he could fill in. I think he's going to push Quay to do better, and I think they're going to feed off each other, because they have the good outside linebackers. They got one of the top corners. They drafted a baller safety from Georgia. There's that familiarity. I think it's Quay's for sure, but who knows how sneaky or where the ceiling is for Coop,
that whole linebacker core is interesting to me because you got Quay Walker. It should be his role and should be his role to keep. Cooper can play this. That's what's interesting about this. But again, how much weight do you need to put on a rookie? I mean, he's going to have to put on a show, an Ivan Pace Jr. type show in preseason to convince me otherwise. So for right now, I'm saying Quay. And then here's the other thing that made me go back and forth with this one. McDuffie, who's just a rotational player, played admirably well when Campbell got hurt last year, Walker got hurt. He kind of got in there. His former college coach, when he was all Pac-10 and all these numbers, all these stats he put up, if you guys want to look at the stats, just go on my Twitter account. I put it all there. His former head coach is now the defensive coordinator here. So I think Cooper gets a little bit of a bench time just because he's more of a rookie and learning the job. And also you have a competent player in McDuffie. So those two are kind of cancel each other out a little bit, giving Walker the extreme role, the extreme potential that he can do. And I think as long as he doesn't get hurt, he's still your guy here.
Yep.
So yeah, not a lot there. I think we agreed on that one. The Texans are kind of interesting to me. What says you about the Texans?
So Aziz makes sense, right? Christian Harris, I don't think he ever filled that role at Alabama, but his teammate from Alabama, who is also his teammate on Houston, could be just the guy to push Aziz to either perform or to steal it, and that's Henry To'oTo'o. He rocked out at Bama, man. I know a lot of y'all watch Bama in all the football playoffs. That dude was flying around everywhere. He's not the most flashy. He's your, box dude. He's not going to make one-handed, freak interceptions. But I'm okay. Like, if Aziz goes down, I already have my guy ready to go. I know he's capable. Yeah, he's not super fast. He's not the strongest, but he's smart, and that's who you want rocking that dot.
Yeah, so for the red dot there, I have obviously, they brought in Aziz Al-Shair for a reason. Okay, yeah. He's the head coach is DeMarco Ryan's guy from his days all the way back in San Francisco. And then last year I did on the other pod. I can't remember how many tackles he had last year. He was 5th in the league last year in tackles, if that helps at home. But that I fully expect him to wear the green dot, Aziz, and there's no reason he cannot be an LB1 in IDP leagues. A lot of the fantasy community doesn't really understand that player. I've studied tape. I've actually watched it. He's a great player. I had him ranked as a top 15 LB throughout the season, and people were drafting him as LB 30. I just don't understand what people don't see otherwise. But yeah, they're going to get grind out of him, and been kind of waiting in the wings. And a lot of his career, he's been kind of like a backup, so he's fresh. So yeah. I don't see it any other way. It's their job to lose. Speaking of jobs to lose, let's talk about the Colts. This one was a little more interesting to me because last year it was Zaire Franklin, and then EJ Speed all of a sudden started making plays once Shaq Leonard left, right? And at the end of the year, there was EJ Speed was on an incredible pace. He could have put up LB2 numbers from the season when Franklin was only putting up LB, I think it was 70 at that point. So when you put those two on the field, Speed was actually producing, making all the high impact plays. Franklin was more like the in-box guy in the middle, making the tackles, what have you. Yeah. I don't know. I don't know how people are ranking this now. This one is a little bit more sneaky than I kind of realized. But what says you? Who do you think the green dot's going to be down there with the Colts?
I think it's got to be Franklin. Looking at my notes, I'm tracking Speed. I'm not tracking all the stats from last season. I don't think I have any leagues. But to me, it's Franklin, no brainer. And I put in my notes, no one else is close.
I think you're right because, like I said, just the way they play, Speed is literally a speed guy, impact, making all these plays. He's more of an outside, and then you have, Franklin in the middle just soaking up all them tackles. So I think it still is Franklin. I'm just kind of interested in Speed as a prospect.
Yeah, like you want a guy that's played a lot of football, right? Who is in the secondary, right? So we got Buckner. You got, the rotational pass rushers they have. They got Latu the Rook, but there's really nobody behind the linebackers that I can think of off the top of my head that isn't super young or has been in that position before. So I think you're right. It's a toss up between the two, but it's probably safer to go Frank.
Right. The next two on our list, I think they're kind of no-brainers too. You got the Jacksonville Jaguars and the Kansas City Chiefs.
Yep.
Any thoughts on both of those organizations? Do you see it anything different than we see it? I mean, they both have top 3-4 linebackers there.
Yeah, man. Oluokun, like referencing our start when we talked about Atlanta and their front office. Oluokun's the guy in Jacksonville. They love drafting like Chad Muma and Ventrell Miller when he shouldn't have been, taking punters in the 4th round. For the Jaguars to secure this man, actually pay this guy money and not deal with, Matt Jones or Justin Blackman or RJ Soward. Don't get me started on Jags. He's the guy. He's top 3 in the league. No question, Foy. And then Kansas City, Bolton's a dude. I told you about Bolton when he was a junior at Missouri, man. He's a guy. He's been the guy in SEC.
I see that too.
But, he does have injury history. So who do they have? It's Tranquil. Outside of that, man, Gay's gone. So it's Bolton for sure. But when he gets hurt, it's going to hand over to Tranquil. I don't really think they've got the can't think of his name, the other guy, but he's nowhere close to rocking that dot.
Yeah, and you know what? I think those are kind of easy ones. I think you got them right. When we get to the Raiders, I don't know if you follow Pro Football Focus. For the audience at home, I'm literally just pulling up stats. I'm pulling up my notes on the screen. For the YouTube audience, you're seeing our, what we're putting up here. I kind of was trying to do a green dot guesses kind of podcast here. And what I did was I pulled some of the smartest people I know. I mentioned Gary Davenport earlier. I'm going to pull up a guy named John Macri. IDP side of the ball, you got to look at stats. And one thing, when you do enough stats, you get enough evidence and it compounds, you notice trends. With the Raiders, it's incredibly well documented. Just go to PFF, type in anything that Antonio Pierce has been doing, okay? Divine Diablo was given every opportunity to be in the mix and to be the guy to relay plays going back all the way, last season, season before. Yeah. But it's been Spillane, the guy that's been making it. It's Spillane's job to lose wearing this green dot. Expect him to continue to start and be the true breakout player that he was last year. I see him as a breakout player this year. I actually have him ranked in my top 25 in May. So just keep that in the back of your hat. But Spillane had the green dot. You know what I mean? I have a little special heart for Spillane ever since when he was with the Steelers and Derrick Henry ran him over and he stopped him at that 1 yard line. So I have a little sentimental value with Spillane. But go ahead, audience, and do your own research and just look at the trends on those two players. I've been trading Divine in a lot of my leagues, and hopefully some of these guys aren't listening, but I kind of got over. I'm getting rid of Divine, and I'm all in on the Spillane train if you can still pick them up.
They did draft a linebacker that actually could be Spillane 2.0.
I love Tommy Eckenberg, my friend. But yeah, you did a great profile of him on the other site. Can you tell the audience about Tom?
Yeah. So if the year's 1974 and you're looking for your next linebacker to lead your defense, this is your guy. That's why I said Spillane. They're very similar style players. Plus, he played for Ohio State, so you don't need to run a 4-2. Your defensive linemen run 4-2s. You don't need to do a whole lot of stuff other than call the plays, make sure that everybody does their job, and make a tackle when your 5-star defensive linemen get beat. That's who he is, and I think he's in a good spot because there's not a lot of competition, so he's going to rotate in. And they have Luke Masterson, a converted DB from Wake Forest.
Yeah.
Okay, next. Diablo, he's on his way out. You said it perfect. He has had every opportunity since coming out of Tech. Can't hold on to it. So, yeah, Spillane's the guy. But keep Tommy on the radar, guys, for sure.
I haven't said this kind of publicly, and if you look at my drafts, I'm all in on this linebacker class. And then later on, it's a quality defensive tackle class. It's really good at cornerback, this draft class. And then, I have a couple great landing spots on safety. You don't hear me say too much about the linebacker because I'm not gonna. I'm a little hesitant right now on certain players' builds because of the way the NFL's going. The NFL is trying to make these guys 2-down players or 1-down. You know what I mean? So it's like if you're not fast enough to keep up with the best of the best of the best, you're going to have some problems out there. So I know guys that are like built 260 pounds, they got to get down to 230 to even be like legitimate on the field. Yeah. Even it's been like that for years, to be honest. It's been like that for years. When you look at like the top players in the NFL right now, the top linebackers, they're all a bit smaller. So, just keep that in mind. I'm a little weary about old school linebackers and what we think of linebackers and what we're getting right now to call these green dots, So if a guy gets on the field, is going to have, I don't know. Like I said, that's my best guesstimation. Let's go over to the Chargers, my friend.
All right. Yeah. So this one.
What do you think about them Chargers?
I think it goes to the rookie, right? Reunited with the old ball coach with the khaki pants, right? He led the Michigan defense. He knows what's expected. He's got 2 Pro Bowlers on the outside. Henley is not the guy. He played football at Washington State. Is he a good middle linebacker? Yeah. I don't think he's a guy. I know he was a tackling machine at State, but go Cougs. But Colson was drafted. He was brought in for a reason. They kicked Murray to the curb. It's got to be Colson, man.
Well done. That's great analysis. With Colson, now, we never discredit. I got Derwin James as a secondary unless this falls through. But the linebacker core is wide open. I'm really not that concerned with Perryman. He's getting older. Henley did wear the green dot in the preseason last year, but he's not the athlete Colston is. You said it yourself. He was the khaki pants' coach's favorite kid on the field, right? Yep. He actually had 95 tackles in 2023. He did 6 tackles for a loss. That's telling you something, right? Yep. With the rookie, I'm a little hesitant, but I don't see it any other way as well. I actually like Junior Colson, here. I kind of like him better than some of these higher ranked linebackers that people have, But it's possible, Derwin James getting older if he's still around, and he is the heart of the defense. So it's either going to be Colston or James at this moment. But, Colston had time together at Michigan. I left that as a note here to kind of talk. Regardless, the Chargers, anybody who's a linebacker for the Chargers is a dream landing spot. Kenneth Murray he looked somewhat competent, right? But Colson should be the first player or one of the first off the board in these tackle-heavy leagues. So it'd be kind of exciting to see how that plays out. But yeah, Colston, I really think as an upstart, and that was well done because I myself as far as a player. But yeah, it's one of those two, and it's just a question of whether or not you feel about a rookie. One player who's not a rookie but did well. Do you see it any other way? Do you see Ernest Jones not getting the green dot? Because they don't play many linebackers down there, do they?
No. Who else is there? I don't see it on the roster. I looked through the depth chart before we came on. Nope, it's Jones. It's got to be Jones. It's Jones.
Yeah, I don't see it either way. They only play one linebacker. You know what I mean? So rotate people through. So that was a kind of an easy one. This one here is not as easy as it looks when you talk about Miami.
Yeah.
Well, I'll start down there in Miami.
You start on Miami State?
Yeah. The two major players that I think you can argue is Jordan Brooks came in, and then David Long. He's done it before. He's done it with Tennessee. What the hell happened to him last year? So that one there. What do you see going on in Miami?
So I'd like to throw a third guy who did wear the dot at one point with Walker from Cleveland. He came in, right? So you have three, and I feel like they're very close with potential, maybe similar stats, similar playing styles. So it's like I'm kind of torn, and who knows what McDaniels is doing down there. He's $900 million over the cap. Drafted in 42 running backs that are all run four flats. It's who knows, man. Like all three of those guys could win it. If I had to guess, if we're putting money down, I'm going with Brooks, but I think it could go one of the three ways.
The thing that bothers me with Brooks and why it's not an automatic to me, because I think you're right. I think it is Jordan Brooks. He's been injured so darn much, but when he plays, he's a freaking.
Yep.
I guess I'd give the coin toss to him. He has came back from traumatic injuries in the past, and he's just wrecked it. He's just wrecked it and done great. Again, they have competent people around him in case we're wrong. I don't see Holland getting the green dot. I don't. Holland's more of a big player. I kind of put a question mark by. I'm Jordan Brooks. I don't see it any other way. Let's go in. Let's keep talking about the M teams here. Let's talk about the Vikings next. Who do you see with the Vikings? What do you like down there?
All right. So you've mentioned, dude, a few times already, and it makes total sense. Ivan Pace. If you don't know who he is, get him on your radar. He came on my radar. I believe he was 1 or 2 his senior year in college, with leading the whole country in tackles. He's a tackling monster.
Let me ask you too, just to throw you off. No one drafted this guy. The Vikings just picked him up as an undrafted free agent. Where I picked up on him, because you were on him way before I was. I think it was week 2. This is usually when I start really looking at tape, week 2 of the preseason. You see this young rookie out there, this shorter rookie with smaller arms in a green dot role, and he was very successful calling the plays. So I think it's his job to lose. But let me ask you about him. What do you see with this player, and why weren't people high on him coming out?
He played for Cincinnati. I believe they ran a 4.25. He was a tackling monster. Maybe it was his 4. I don't remember how he tested at the combine. It was probably going back to how the NFL is transitioning. Did he not run a good 40? Did he not have a good bench? The stats are there. But why would he go undrafted? Is there off the field issues? I don't know. Vikings got to steal, but I do have one thought on somebody that could push him or potentially take it, and that's Blake Cashman coming back home, right? I watched him play at Minnesota for years. He's flying all around. He balled the Texans last year. History of injuries, but could push him. I mean, Cashman's been around a hot minute. This is year 2 for Pace. So it's Pace's to lose. But if anything, they just make each other better. They feed off each other, right? Because they're different types of linebackers.
Yeah, I think you're right about that. They're different types. And like I said, I think that's Ivan Pace's job to lose, especially now that they didn't re-sign Hicks, who's a competent LB2 type player. So I think it's his. Yeah. This one here, I want to dig in a little bit more. Coming up is the New England Patriots. I don't know what to expect. It's a new regime. And even when Bill was there, let's be honest, do we really know what to expect? He rotated his linebackers out so much. I mean, it could be Bentley. It could be somebody new. It could even be one of the safeties because, the safeties historically in New England, when Bill was there, they would put the green dot on because those linebackers would rotate out, in and out. What do you think with New England now? Who do you think is going to end up with the green dot this year?
So this on my list, this is the safety. This is Duggar. And I believe I read earlier that he's worn the green dot before. So he had to have worn it when Bill was there. So with his experience. And then the linebacking core being in such fluctuation, new coach, maybe just let Duggar have it for this season so there's not too much change going on. I don't know if you saw the article, dude coming out today, Mayo, saying, about Drake, his quarterback. He's got a long way to go. So if offense doesn't have a wide receiver, they don't have a quarterback, because he's a rook, let's keep defense as set standard with leadership and some normalcy. I think they leave it with Duggar.
Yeah, and I think you're right about that. I think it would be Duggar. It would just be safer. So go with Bentley. Priority you'd want a linebacker. If not, it'd be Duggar. But yeah, those are your two right there. Some teams are harder to do than others. So I have questions on some of these. We're gonna have to kind of come back in the offseason, kind of figure out what is it that we see and don't see. This team here, the Saints. I think this one here is kind of an easy one. What do you see about the Saints?
Yep, same page, man. It's DeMario. It's DeMario until he retires.
Until otherwise told, I don't see anybody else going in there and challenging that. I mean, we thought it was going to be Pete Werner, but that did not work out like the way we thought it would. All right, I'll let you hit the next couple. I think they're fairly easy. What about the Giants?
Man, actually, looking at my list, the next 5 in a row are the no-brainer highlighted guys for me. It's Bobby. His last name is super fun to say, Okereke. But yeah, McFadden from Indiana. No, he's not the guy. He's not going to be the guy. He's a really good sub. Bobby's the guy.
Okay, and then we got the Jets, right?
Yep. CJ. Quincy could fill in. Jags like Quincy walk. Quincy puts up stats. If you're talking about a 1 and 2 linebacker, Quincy's so surprising. If you can get him, if CJ's gone, don't get mad. You still have a dude that's going to put up a good stat line.
If you see that otherwise, but I think it's worth mentioning. They did re-sign Devin White, and he's a third-year player out of Georgia. Nakobe Dean is. I mean, he's the younger guy. Will he be wearing the green dot? That's a question mark. I don't know. That's the ultimate question here, whether or not Dean will take the communication duties away. He should still be the man going forward, but White does have plenty of experience. So this one here is not as clear-cut like the rest of them as it sounds. What do you say about the Eagles here? How do you see it?
So, living an hour away from Athens, we saw a lot of Georgia ball. Dean was sick to watch, right? And him and all 900 of his Georgia classmates got drafted by Rosie too. So you would think because of his potential, and they got him as a steal because of his injury history, he's undersized, blah, 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 right? But then they bring in Devin White. So if you think about Dean's been on the team for 2 years and hasn't really played much. Then they bring in Devin White, who's got a lot of experience, but also he had a really good mentor with one of our guys on our list here in the next couple teams with Levante David, right? So somebody to learn from. So I think he steps into the role and Devin White doesn't look back. Pretty sure he was top 2 or top 3 leader at LSU when he came out. So I don't think it's much of a change for him. If anything, they feed off of each other because they're both high caliber SEC inside linebackers.
Gotcha. What was I going to tell you here on that note too? You think it's going to be Devin White, huh?
Yeah.
Yeah. And that's just an indictment on whether or not you believe in Dean, so that's more of an interpretation. That's more of a question. It's going to be burning, as the season progresses. The Steelers, do you see that one any other way than the way we do, or I do, and the audience does here?
No, man. Queen's the guy, and I just love the fact that he has to play the Ravens twice a year now. Like, why would you do that to Lamar? Why? So Queen's a guy.
Mm-hmm. Queen's your guy. I don't think there's much analysis needed here. Same thing with the 49ers. I know the 49ers got a deep little group here. Anything you want to add to the 49ers?
I mean, like, he's been Fred Warner. I don't know how long he's been in the league now, but he's like a Pro Bowler every year. He is a tackling monster. He's everywhere. That is probably the most no-brainer on this list.
Gotcha. And, I want to kind of sit on these next couple teams a minute if you can. We're going to talk about Seattle. When I look at Seattle, right, I see this as a team in transition. For the audience at home that can't see my screen, I'm literally pulling up some of the notes, some of the things that we have looked at, some of these things that we researched. We mentioned Gary Davenport. We mentioned John Macri. One of the things that I wanted to mention here is Tom Kay from the UK. Every year, AJ, and I don't know if you know this, but every year he does this thing called the Defensive Players Handbook. And he'll go and he will mash up stats and he'll pound them. And again, I'm very grateful for the friendships of these people because, like, if I didn't have these stats in front of me, I probably wouldn't have a show, But he breaks down coverages, schemes, thoughts, this, that, whatever. One glaring need. I mean, shoot, you want to go back 2 years with the Seahawks? They almost had similar records where they start off great and then they kind of crashed. It's been the defense. It's been particularly the linebacker core. People in Seattle, they were a little nervous, and I did this on my team-by-team previews. They're like, oh, we lost Wagner and Brooks. Well, you weren't good at that position either with those guys. You weren't. They were victimized a lot in the tackling department. Okay, everybody that you've had there, whether it was Brooks, whether it was going all the way back, going back to when Cody Barton was there. I mean, there's historical data on this that just shows that the Seahawks in general are just not a very good interior or a great linebacker core. So I'm looking at the secondary. I'm looking at the secondary a little bit harder. Okay, I'm looking at the secondary alignments, what have you. The guys they brought in are sneaky ads. They brought a guy named Dotson. And John Macri at PFF has Dotson graded pretty high. He's in the 90s. I looked at the other day. Dotson's a sneaky ad for me. I don't see him as a green dot. And I know this because I remember last year, look at the preseason early games when the Bills were playing musical chairs. This is when Dotson got ran through. He wasn't making a play. So I don't see his inexperience. I don't see him as a great green dot caller. You have Jerome Baker there, who's not a good box safety. He's more of an outside doing other things. That's interpretive. I've gotten in conversations with people about that before. He doesn't have great tackle efficiency. So you have one guy that can do this well. You have one that can do this well. I'm not sure. So this is kind of where I'm like calling my shot. And I know they have a good secondary. And I know they historically will bring that safety down. And I know historically they're not as good an interior linebacker. So I'm thinking Jordan Love is a good investment here. If he's not at least a good fantasy investment, I'm thinking Jordan Love might actually take this green dot and run with it this year. That's my take. I just wanted to put my science to it. What says you?
I agree with you 97%, but I want to throw a 3% what if situation. There's a rook that they drafted, right? And like you said, historically, you can look back. They took the best defensive tackle, Murphy, right? So he's there. He's going to clog. He's going to fill in some gaps. There's a guy named Tyrese Knight that they drafted at a UTEP. He had no one on his team. So if you look back, Jerome Baker, another Ohio State middle linebacker, played with, 47 5-stars. Knight was the guy. Knight was it. He tackled everything. I saw him tackle a grandma crossing the street. So I'm just saying, like, he could be this dude that pushes probably past Dotson, I think, in potential-wise. But with Baker kind of playing that weird outside shifty, I'm too big to be a safety, too small to be a linebacker, but I have the speed for both. Knight could be a sneaky dude. If not, throw dude on your taxi, draft him late. I don't think a lot of people know who he is because he's a small school guy. Just something to consider.
Gotcha. The next one we're talking about is the Buccaneers. I'm not putting a lot of data into it, but you can see my screen, right? Tom K has the most common personal package that they used last year, the 30 snap play. It's pretty much two linebacker sets, okay? Levante David screams right here. Levante David's tackle efficient. There's no reason in the world they would want to switch from David to somebody else. He just excels. So regardless who they put next to him, whether it's Britt, whether it's the younger guy, whether it's Brad, whoever ends up in there, it's Levante David's job to lose. I don't see that any other way. Do you?
The guy with the coolest name on the team is probably the only dude that has the potential to challenge him, but he's probably 3 years away from even being close. And David's going to be retired by then. It's Servassier Dennis. But there's nobody else, man. Winfield, nah. Let Winfield do Winfield duties. Just let David. He's been a leader for so long now. Let him retire, rocking the dot.
Titans. I kind of want to stay here a little bit. I don't know how you have this, but I'm intrigued on the new players that they're bringing in. I really am. And again, it's so early. We don't know what to expect. We don't know what to see. But they got this young rookie in camp, Cedric Gray. And I'm trying to read up everything I know about this guy. I know Cedric had 200 tackles in 2 years. I know he's a box linebacker. I know for a team that's in transition that needs players, I can't see him not getting on the field. It's just a question of whether or not they make him the green dot. And I'm not the only one who thinks this, because there's articles being written as we speak. I yanked an article the other day about Tennessee Titan, the Wire. People are talking right now. They think that people are sleeping on Gray, and they're talking about this green dot, and he may be the guy. And this was May 11th. I mean, this was today, actually, this article here. So this could be something we see day one in minicamp. It looks good to me, but like I said, keep an eye on this. I think it's Cedric Gray. Usually linebackers struggle, though. It could be a safety. It could be a linebacker. It could be anybody here. This is anybody's guess, but I'm thinking for my money, it may be one of these young kids. AJ, what says you about this Titans core?
So total overhaul, new coach. Who knows what Tennessee's doing? On offense, they're just going to pick up every wide receiver getting close to the age of 30. Defense, when you look at the defense, and you actually, I knew who this guy was, but you put him on my radar statistically, right? And you told me, like, hey, this dude's available in a couple leagues. I looked through their linebacking core, and we talked about this guy earlier. Murray, Chargers let him walk for a reason. He couldn't earn it as the starter. He was a first-round pick. He's not the guy. Next other guy, Gibbons, undrafted free agent. Pretty sure last year was his rookie year or second year in the league. He's not your guy. I watched Gray play quite a bit at UNC. You're right. He's a tackling monster. If Titans Wire is putting out that they're seeing some stud qualities on dude, probably is going to happen. But right now, because we're in May, my safe bet, going off the guy you told me about and his statistics, with 66 games played for the same team, Amani Hooker, the safety.
There's no wrong answer here, because like I said, we don't know. We don't have any inside track. And my audience, they like it when we go deep dive. It's always good to have an alternate. There's always good to have an alternate take. Amani Hooker, I don't know if you remember the stats on him, but he was putting up monster DB1 type stats until he got hurt last year. If anybody wants to look at the tweet, I tweeted it a couple weeks ago. But yeah, that's not a bad one either, considering the situation. I know they drafted a couple people. I know they brought in some stuff, but historically, this goes to the linebacker, and otherwise it'll go to the safety. So either one, there's no right or wrong way to play this. But I think I think it's kind of interesting when the safety does get the green dot. And I think the last two teams, Seattle and Tennessee, I think those are the teams that would probably end up getting New England. Those would be the teams that would possibly get it. Again, like I said, it's all speculation here in May. We're going to have to come back and actually really hit this up. Our last team's a little bit intriguing too. What can you tell us about the Commanders?
I want to touch on something real quick, what I just noticed, and I believe I'm right on this. Amani Hooker is also another Iowa guy. So I don't know if it's the what they're doing up there in Iowa defensively. I know they always have quality defense, but maybe it aligns better with professional level of football. Just something to think about. But yeah, the Commanders, formerly known as the Commanders, Bobby Wagner, man, it's Bobby. It was always Bobby. It was Bobby the day he left Utah State. Jamin Davis.
Yeah.
Like, I don't think he's ever been able to fill the shoes he was expected to fill. Frankie, that dude, he's better off the edge. I don't even see him as like an every down player in my personal opinion. So it's got to be Bobby for me, a future Hall of Famer. If he even runs a 6.5 40, give him the green dot. He will inspire and lead. And guess what? He'll make the hard tackle when he needs to.
Yeah, and then to AJ's point, the Commanders are in transition, and you look at the way they drafted. They're pretty much bringing in their own players. They don't care if they have them on the depth chart already. They're bringing in their own players, the guys that Dan Quinn wants, right? This is Dan Quinn's new squad. We really can't look at these numbers objectively because not only is it a new team, everywhere Dan Quinn goes, he goes ahead and rebuilds it, whether it's a cover 3 when it was in Seattle or it was NASCAR package with the Cowboys. Bobby Wagner has the familiarity with Dan Quinn. So he's my guy there. He's done this green dot for eternity. There's really no question mark here. It's just an intriguing situation because I don't know where he's going to play with this. I don't know. He's a very effective player. I know Lavu is really good at pass rushing, Bobby being the inside. Just don't get your hopes up for like pass coverage or anything like vintage Bobby Wagner. But I see a lot of holes on this team. They probably might finish bad again. But, yeah, as far as the green dot goes, I think that's my no-brainer as well.
Yeah.
AJ, we went through all of these. We did it in an hour, which is impressive. Any closing thoughts? Anything we left out? Anything? Tell the audience where they could find you.
Man, I don't think we left out anything. We covered some crazy rookies. I mean, it's just going to be fun to look back once August hits. Actually, once week 3 preseason finishes. Let's see. Let's get a refresher going. That's it. Y'all have a wonderful weekend. August needs to hurry up.
It does. All right, you've listened to the IDP Hunting Ground podcast. We'll see y'all next week.